Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of BA Fringe. Can you believe we've got a whole series already in the bank? We're Series 2 already. If you've not come across BA Fringe before, BA Fringe is a live stream show that celebrates ideas around the edges of business analysis, whether that's perhaps techniques that we've forgotten about that we should bring back to the core of what we do, or maybe it's new ideas from intersecting disciplines that we should find more about. I'm very pleased to say that this episode is sponsored by AssistKD. Massive thanks to the folks at AssistKD for sponsoring the show. They'll actually be running a competition a little bit later in the show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I'm really excited about the competition because I've got a sample of one of the prizes and it is fantastic. Now, you may be tuning in on Zoom. If you are, be sure to use the chat facility to network with the other people who are tuning in. So if you're on Zoom, put a little chat message in there saying who you are and where you're from, and you can have a little chat as we sort of go along in the show. Now, if you didn't register in time, if you didn't get a place in the Zoom room, you might be watching on YouTube live. You'll still see exactly the same show, but you won't have the networking. So be sure to register early next time so that you don't miss out. So we have a whole range of eclectic but equally important topics for you today. We're going to be talking about service design and what it means for business analysis and business analysts. We're going to be talking about how you can progress from a BA role to a senior BA role. We're going to be talking about digital literacy, lifelong learning and what they mean for BAs, and we're going to be talking about the IIBA UK mentoring scheme. So be sure to stay tuned for all of those things. Now, as you know, if you've ever seen an episode of this before, this is genuinely live, so anything could happen. We like to think that's part of the show's charm, because those of you who have been with us since the very beginning know that things do go wrong occasionally, and we just sort of get on with it. So, look out for the occasional blunder along the way. It's always part of the fun. Now, because the show is live, you can have a shout out read out live on air. So if you're celebrating something, if you'd like to say thank you to a colleague, or maybe you hear something on the show and you just want to say thanks to the person who raised it, or maybe you just got a thought about business analysis generally, you can get your shout out to us here in the studio by navigating to bafringe.live. That is bafringe.live. And there's just a very brief form to fill in there with basically who you are and what you want us to read out. And providing there aren't too many of them, we'll read out as many as we possibly can in the show. We do occasionally get some really, really interesting, like weirdly interesting, bizarre, curveball things through the shout out. And we always enjoy those. So do feel free to put the curveball ones through as well. And also, as a reminder, the hashtag is BA Fringe. So be social, share your ideas. I always love looking at social media after an episode of BA Fringe has broadcast, and I particularly love it when you've taken pictures. Sometimes you take pictures of yourselves watching the show. That's always really, really great as well. So do tweet out or put on LinkedIn what you're particularly enjoying. But we will move straight on to our first segment. Have you ever wondered what service design is? Or have you ever perhaps considered that we get involved with service design as business analysts? Well, our next guest really needs no introduction. I'm sure many, if not all of you, will have read a book that she has authored or co-authored. You will have heard her in a keynote or regular presentation, or you may well have attended a course run by the company for which she's a managing director of. I'm really pleased that we have Debra Paul, who is managing director of AssistKD. Now, Debbie's written many books, including the book by BCS called Business Analysis, The Human Touch. She's also a co-author of the BA Techniques book and, of course, Delivering Business Analysis, the BA Service Handbook, amongst many, many other things. So, Debbie, thank you so much for taking time to be here today.
That's fine, Adrian. It's really nice to be here.
Fantastic. So, Debbie, a phrase we're hearing more and more in the BA community these days is service design. For anyone who hasn't heard that phrase before, how would you define it?
It's a bit like business analysis, isn't it? It's one of those phrases that you think, how do we define this now? But service design starts and ends with the customer. So it's a very, very customer-centric view. And it's a customer-centric view of the organization that looks at what is it the organization offers its customers. That's, if you like, the service angle. And how is that offered? That's the design angle, both of which ensure that a value proposition is offered that meets customer needs and achieves the customer experience that customers really want. So it sort of ties everything together. It's an approach that brings together the internal and the external, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it, Debbie? Because quite often sort of design ends up being quite internally focused. And it's sort of almost what the organisation thinks the world ought to look like, rather than what the world actually looks like. And that leads me to my next question, which is some people might be listening and thinking that sounds a bit like sort of end-to-end process design, but I would certainly, in my mind, service design and process analysis are quite different things. Would you agree? And if so, how would you describe the differences?
I think they link. I think there is a link between service design and process design, but they are different. And where they differ is that you start, when you're thinking about a service, by asking yourself, who are the customers? What is it that they want from the organization? What do we mean by service? What exactly is the utility or the beneficial outcome? And then you start thinking about the different ways of actually achieving delivery of that. The problem with process as a view, and don't get me wrong, I love a good process model.
I think we all do.
we have to agree on that, Adrian.
Yep.
It can be something that is much more about how we do it, but also I have come across organizations where the process view tends to be, how can we develop our processes so that they are efficient and effective for us as an organization? And while we need that viewpoint, if you like, if you're actually looking at service, you're looking outside, you're looking at the customer and you're saying, what is it they need? So it operates on a slightly different level. The design angle is concerned with how we deliver it, but it's not just about meeting the organization's needs. And I think that's where it differs.
It's really interesting, Debbie, because an example, and funnily enough, I was writing a blog about a very similar topic today, ironically. But one of the examples I often think of is about like procurement departments, where it's very efficient for procurement departments to get all of their suppliers to submit invoices through a centralized procurement portal, which is, which means that it goes straight in. They have to, the suppliers have to rekey lots of information. But if you're a supplier that's supplying something occasionally to that customer, it's an absolute nightmare. So what they've really done is just moved the cost from inside the organization to outside the organization. And you know what? I think most suppliers just pass that cost back to them because they have to.
Exactly. And I think that's exactly it. As I say, I think process improvement and lean process design and all that sort of thing is important, although it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got quite a holistic view there. So you'd have to take that into consideration. And we always talk about stakeholders, don't we, in business analysis? Stakeholders is one of those words that I don't really like, okay? And the reason I don't like it is because it allows us to think that we can pigeonhole people.
Yeah.
And you can't. And where the service mindset comes in and, using techniques like service thinking and design thinking is that you're not thinking stakeholders in the general sense. You're thinking about people. Yeah. And, when we talk about things like customer experience, it's people we're talking about, and they have different experiences and different needs from the experiences too.
And a lot of variety in the types of needs that even people within the same segment might have. So interesting. So that sort of, as we were chatting there, Debbie, I was starting to think about the word value, because I mean, if you think about it, value is a term that we hear a lot in, as you know, in organizations, in business and in business analysis. You hear about business value, customer value. How would you say value relates to all of this, and what does it actually mean?
Well, and this is the question. And interestingly, if you look at something like service science, which is a sort of an empirical research lens on this, it's sometimes called the theory of value. And what is being considered in that is exactly that question. What do we mean by value? Because boy, oh boy, don't we trot it out all the time at the moment?
Yep.
And I think it's really excellent that the service view is questioning this use of delivering value, adding value, because actually, if you're a customer, you know what means value to you. And so the organization can propose value. We talk about value propositions, absolutely spot on. But actually, in terms of the customer realizing value, there's a whole different area going on there. And within the service design world, the phrase and actually the key concept is something called value co-creation. So what you're then thinking about is collaboration, understanding, well, what are the customer experience needs? What are the service needs here? If we as an organization have defined a value proposition, does it actually meet what people want? The only way we're going to find out is if we work with customers in order to identify what their expectations are and what the value experience they want to be. Then we've also got to collaborate in terms of saying, well, okay, if this is what's wanted, we need to develop something, working with our customers and co-creating so that we can actually make sure what's delivered has a chance. And it's still only a chance, because actually there's a third stage then, which is co-creating to realize value. You know, so often when we talk about delivery of value, it stops at delivery. And if there's no realization, there's no beneficial outcome, there's no value. And really in business analysis and beyond business analysis, we need to start appreciating this, because otherwise we're just using words and you're buzzword bingo, aren't you, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of that anyway, isn't there? So yes. as you were speaking there, Debbie, I was almost thinking it's like there's a hypothesis of value based on our research about what we think customers want, and then we collaborate with them to sort of validate and I suppose prototype. But the other thing that was going around in my head is, and all of that has to fit within the external environmental constraints, because I might, as a customer, want to, I don't know, you know, to sign up for a bank account without showing any ID, but I can't because there's a constraint, which means I have to, which is ultimately to protect me. So, I mean, would you agree with that idea of it's like a hypothesis of value that's constantly tested, and the co-creation comes when you know, that's when the sort of rubber meets the road type of thing?
And interesting, that's exactly it. And one of the techniques you might use if you're looking at design thinking in order to develop this service and determine how you're going to deliver it and what it consists of is something called hypothesis testing. And that's actually a technique that you might use. But part of the mindset is also focused on experimentation and trying things out. So the sort of test and learn and improve and test and learn a bit more and reflect and all those types of things, it's all part of the picture. And you can sort of see where business analysis fits in that, can't you? Because you know, first of all, we've got this massive toolkit. We love a good scenario.
We do.
We like a prototype, and so you can see, and also we love talking to and engaging with stakeholders in the real true sense of engaging with people. So it pulls a lot of that together, but it does question some of the accepted received wisdoms around things like value that cause us to then probe a little bit more and hopefully get it a bit more correct in terms of customer.
Yeah, fantastic. So Debbie, if you were to just very briefly name a few techniques that people might want to Google and look up, or if you've got like a top technique or a top takeaway for people to do some more reading about in this whole area, what would those techniques or that idea that people should go away and Google, what would it be?
Well, there's a few different areas, so I'll do them quickly. I think in the value area, I do love a value stream, actually, because value streams are focused on the customer and understanding value propositions, because we talk value proposition, but actually you can analyze, you can dissect, and you can create value propositions. So I think looking at value proposition analysis is also really good. Within the customer area, customer journey maps are a very, very, very good technique for this, because it looks at touch points, and touch point analysis tells us a lot about the customer experience world. So I would also recommend that. And then if you're looking more in the design thinking world, something like empathy mapping and maybe service blueprints that build on customer journey maps. These are really key techniques.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, thank you, Debbie. I'm sure people were taking notes as you were speaking there, and we'll all be Googling those, I'm sure. So, Debbie, I'm sure people will want to stay in touch. They'll want to, follow you, find out more about AssistKD. How's the best way for people to connect with you, and also find out more about, what you do at AssistKD?
Well, AssistKD.com is our website, and people can go on there. There are various links to contact us. So, and if anybody ever puts in debbie.paul or debra.kd.com, they all reach me. And I am on LinkedIn, and I try to engage whenever people communicate with me. I think we're in a brilliant community of people in this world, and it's just great to hear from anybody.
Fantastic. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I'm absolutely certain that that people will be sort of those ideas will be buzzing around. So fantastic. Well, thanks again, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian.
Thanks. So some really, really interesting thoughts there, I thought, from Debbie. I had so many ideas buzzing around when we were chatting there about service design and how it sort of relates to customer experience, and how perhaps, as Debbie was saying, there's that whole process thinking is a little bit too internal. So it puts another lens on what we do as business analysts, which I always think is a really, really interesting idea. So I know I'll certainly be Googling a lot of those ideas. So don't forget, you can have a shout out read out if you would like to, because we are live. I see we do have some shout outs coming in. I can see from the monitor. We'll cover them in the next interval, but there's still time to get your shout out in. Just go across to bafringe.live. That is bafringe.live. If there's something you want to celebrate, maybe something Debbie just said really resonates with you and you want to let other BAs know, please do. We always love hearing your shout outs. Also, I mentioned there was going to be a competition. Now, the competition this month is to win something really, really cool. Well, I think it's really, really cool. I hope you'll think it's really, really cool. It is a set of top trump cards that are basically top BA techniques set up as a game of top trumps. And it's an official piece of Top Trumps merch, like it's properly Top Trumps. And these are made by AssistKD. AssistKD have sponsored this episode and indeed this prize. Now, there's actually a few decks that are being given away. All you need to do to enter that prize is navigate over to AssistKD's website. If you go to AssistKD/news, that's AssistKD.com/news. You'll see the top item there tells you how to enter that competition. So do it now before you forget. Go in there, enter it. You might win this really cool set of Top Trumps cards. And what we'll do is we will paste the direct link into the chat within the next few seconds as well, so you can just click straight on it. But well worth, as I say, well worth entering. I've seen a deck of the cards. They really, really are quite cool. So that brings us on to our next topic. Have you ever wondered how you make that transition from business analyst to senior business analyst? It's one of those questions that's really quite tricky. You might have been in a role for a while and you're wondering how to get the experience you need, or how to build up the portfolio of evidence that you need, or or you might not even know what the sort of the direction of travel is. Well, I'm really pleased to say that Marcus Udokang, who is Senior Business Analyst at IIBA Consulting, is going to talk to us about this very topic. So, Marcus, over to you.
Hi, I'm Marcus Udokang, and today I'm going to discuss how to navigate from a BA to a senior BA role. As an intermediate business analyst, do you feel cabin, cribbed, confined in your role? Do you feel at a point of stagnation and frustration? Perhaps you need a change. One way for effective change is to shift your gears and navigate your way to a senior business analyst role. To become a senior BA, there must be a conscious effort to understand the expectations of that job. You have to earn the role. You're not always given an opportunity. You have to grow into an opportunity by accepting more responsibility. Do not fear it. Embrace it as a challenge. There are 5 main methods I'll describe today that can help you grow into a senior business analyst role. 1, play a strategic part in helping your stakeholders bring their goals and objectives to fruition through the right initiatives. Build opportunities to influence senior stakeholders by becoming a trusted advisor to them. Be that purposeful partner to executives. Have that holistic overview of the business so you can ask pertinent questions to ensure the business goal is met. What are the steps stakeholders need to solve business challenges? Develop solutions that address the business goal and make sure your solutions are aligned to the business strategy. 2, develop concrete analysis skills to be able to provide a clear range of forecasts or estimates for business solutions. Provide scenarios using analysis tools like a Monte Carlo diagram. Be able to explain risks with forecasts and adjust those forecasts based on new data. Learn to easily diagnose business problems. Can you identify risks within the business requirements? Communicate an effective mitigation or contingency plan to the project team and follow up on those risks throughout the project. Offer more than one solution for a business problem with a recommendation and rationale for each of those solutions. Offer a strategic analysis on how to move the organization to a future state. 3, work on larger complex projects. Take on increased responsibility in projects of larger scope. Work with the project manager to decompose a work breakdown structure into smaller units of work. You understand the contingencies, constraints, dependencies, and missing components involved in a work package. Know how to incorporate change requests into those work plans. Can you work on integrated systems and communicate with multiple stakeholders with various perspectives across different departments and organizations with different resources? 4, become a BA team lead or show leadership. Review and coordinate the planning requirements, deliverables, and work effort for a group of BAs on your team. Show a sense of urgency for solving problems. Have a positive attitude and a willingness to mentor and coach junior and intermediate business analysts. Constantly seek feedback to know where you need improvement. Show an awareness of how you can apply your skills within the business context. Are you fully familiar with your company's business model and how it operates within the market? You understand business concepts within your domain and how they relate to one another. Have the confidence to easily adapt to new business domains and to work comfortably across multiple domains. Deliberately share ideas openly with coworkers and stakeholders so they can develop insights from your knowledge and make informed decisions about business problems. 5, develop enterprise analysis skills. Become an active participant in defining the business need and building the business case for that need. Understand the desired benefits associated with all those business needs. Confirm and clarify those items by asking poignant questions. Know how to define capability gaps at a high level. Understand business rules analysis. What is a business rule? It's more than just a constraint. It can also be a fact, a definition, or a derivation. Know how to analyze processes. The root of the problem may stem from the data, or may not stem from the data necessarily, but from the processes that surround the data. For example, understand the software and how it impacts other users whom you support in your organization. Leverage a variety of methodologies to tackle projects. In summary, to transition from a business analyst to a senior business analyst, you need to play a strategic role, develop concrete analysis skills, work on larger complex projects, become a BA team lead or show leadership. You need to develop enterprise analysis skills. In a sense, you need to see the big picture, that 360-degree view of the business. Have those core competencies and corresponding skills which provide a breadth and depth of knowledge and experience for stakeholders. You need to master the business domain knowledge, having a solid understanding of business dynamics at play in your organization. Your work must support what is required and desired within the business. Be proactive, be self-aware, and be able to influence change and show strong leadership skills. Develop and maintain a strong, sincere relationship with stakeholders through trust, reliability, and credibility. Be open to new challenges. Take the initiative to extend that range of knowledge and experience by cultivating your skills through continuous development. To win that battle against stagnation and frustration of staying at BA level, overall there needs to be that intentional momentum to move and maintain that transformation to become a valuable business analyst.
Fantastic. Well, some really interesting points there, I thought, from Marcus. I mean, there's really so much to take away from that. It's so much content in such a relatively short amount of time. Some of the things I took from it when I saw it was about seeing the big picture, that breadth and depth of knowledge. That really, really resonated with me, particularly the sort of idea of, you need that sort of breadth across the across the discipline. I love the idea of being proactive. We shouldn't necessarily wait for permission. We should just go out and do it and get the experience, and self-aware, and the fact that we can influence change, whatever our in inverted commas pay grade is. And of course that idea of relationship building and continuous development is so important. And actually continuous development links to the topic we'll be discussing in just a few moments' time. But before we get there, we have had a couple of shout outs come in. So do remember, if you'd like a shout out read out, you just need to navigate to bafringe.live, bafringe.live. Now I did say we get the occasional curveball one in, and that seems to have set the creativity wild in at least one person's mind, which always entertains us here in the studio. So first of all, Janice McNamara says, thanks to Liz Calder and Saffron House for your work putting together the IIBA UK Mentoring Scheme 2021. It's a pleasure working with you. Now, if you saw the last episode of BA Fringe, you would have seen Janice on the show. She's a fantastic, inspirational person as well, but I can definitely say working with Liz and Saf is I'm sure, very, very fantastic too. The second slightly more curveball shout out starts pretty normal. It's from Peter, and Peter says, really like the show. It's helping keeping me going during these lockdown periods. That's another thing. I don't know where you all are in the world, but I hope you're coping with whatever lockdown situation you're in. He goes on to say that it's great to see the technical setup you have there. Very impressive. Did you know movie cameras can't pick up cigars? If you put a cigar in front of a movie camera, it looks like a sausage. Therefore, whenever you see a cigar, I can't keep this together, Matt, I can't. If you see a cigar on a movie, they're actually holding a sausage. I've no idea if this is some secret coded message to someone, but it just made me laugh. So thank you very much to whoever sent that in, because I'm sure it's not the person whose name they actually put on the form. But yeah, so we will even read out the crazy ones as well in this. So now you know it really, really is live. Now, if you would like to enter the competition that we mentioned in the last interval, just a reminder, you can win a really cool set of top trumps, courtesy of Assist. We'll just flash that URL up again. It's assistkd.com/news. So we'll move swiftly on to our next section. Now, in Marcus's section, Marcus mentioned the importance of continuous development, which we could sort of morph into lifelong learning. And I'm really pleased to say that we're joined by Tony Lawrence, who's a freelance business analyst and product owner. And we're going to be discussing two topics that we probably don't think about that often as BAs, and we probably should think about them a little bit more. We're going to talk about digital literacy and lifelong learning. So Tony, thanks very much for taking time out to be here today.
Very welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. So Tony, the idea of digital literacy may well be new to some people tuning in. Are you able to describe what it means and perhaps give us a bit of an insight into why it's a topic that you're particularly enthusiastic about?
I mean, I couldn't have described it in any meaningful sense until quite recently when I was seeking out a definition. And one that I found, which I think it probably sums up my understanding of it, quite a broad definition. Digital literacy means having the skills you need to live, learn and work in a society where communication and access to information is increasingly through digital platforms. That's quite a mouthful, but I think it sums up that it's not just about how you use technology in the workplace, it's about how you live your day-to-day life, communication with friends and family. And and my passion for it probably has existed before that term ever existed, before the word digital. The work I do, the industry I work in, I've always wanted to learn and be a teacher. So maybe that's my where I've come to this point in my career, really.
And Tony, as you were speaking there, I was thinking about a term we hear in the news quite a lot. We hear like the digital divide. And, you know, so, I mean, for example, something that's in the UK here is, I suppose, very pertinent at the moment is, you know, you've perhaps got people homeschooling and some people may not have access to the laptops to do the schooling that, you know, the education that they're supposed to be doing, or they might not have the broadband or the data plan. Does digital literacy link into that idea that actually, you know, people might not be able to, there might be a subset of the population that can't do things because they don't know how to, that others take for granted?
Absolutely. I mean, there will be some true and pressing economic needs and the poverty angle where people physically can't access the internet or have devices that they can study or work effectively from home. That is an issue. In terms of what they do once they have a shiny broadband connection and they have a browser or machine, yeah, the access then to the materials you need that are reliable and trustworthy and are at that right level, that's part of digital literacy and digital inclusion. People, if they're not from an IT background, if they're not as well versed as we are in learning and picking up new skills, and it can be frightening. It doesn't feel like a safe environment. Digital skills is about building that level of both practical knowledge and skills, but also confidence.
Well, which is interesting, Tony, because as you're speaking there, I was also starting to think about like cybersecurity and fraud, because there's quite a lot, quite rightfully, quite a lot of fear. But you know, if you're not, I suppose if your digital literacy, or would you say if your or if someone's digital literacy was low, they're actually possibly more likely to be a victim of fraud because they don't know, they might not know, for example, that a text message telling you you've got a parcel from an unknown number is quite an unusual thing. Would you say there's an element of that to it as well?
Absolutely, and that's where I said confidence. You need to have some awareness of what doesn't look right in terms of spam or some other phishing attack or some other attack. But that's not to say that we want to. It's not a project fear. We don't want to stop people accessing these services. We want to make sure that we give them enough knowledge to function. I work with a number of charities involving older citizens, and the key thing is they don't understand what the cloud is. They don't understand about password security and viruses.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? 'Cause I remember. Well, I went to have some professional photographs taken back when you could go places and see people. And I remember the photographer was a very talented photographer, but was, you know, struggling to get, you know, not so great with the computer. And he was telling me that, like, when he first heard about the cloud, he thought like there were like data centers in the air or something, which, you know, isn't as crazy as it sounds if you don't live in that world, is it? You know, if you're not in the tech world. So I mean, Tony, so you've given a really useful definition, and we've had a sort of chat about what digital literacy is. I suppose the next or another BA question we would ask is, well, like the so what, or so what, why should we care about this as BAs? What is it that we can do to contribute towards this?
I mean, I don't need to repeat to you, or, I mean, you've been in the industry as long as I have. We are lifelong learners, and the nature of our work is about learning new things, both in the problem domain and the solution domain, technologies, practices, approaches. But what we do get involved in is junior colleagues or stakeholders, or the wider community of users and customers who may not have that same level of knowledge or perspective. So part of our mindset, and I'm not just talking about UX, I'm talking about a more general, the language we use, the expectation of the skill level of the consumers of our services, the buyers of the products that we're providing. We're duty bound, I think, to think about them as a broader spectrum of society, not just pigeonhole them to a digital native who may know what we're talking about. We need to target the systems and the solutions to possibly the lower level of understanding to make things as easy as possible. That's a responsibility of a good BA, I believe.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think perhaps there was a time when the view might be, oh, well, that's just like, you know, you just write one non-functional or a couple of non-functional requirements about, you know, ease of use or whatever, and you're done. Which is, I mean, and that's quite a sort of outdated view, because this is, or if I'm understanding you correctly, Tony, this is about really building in inclusivity. And the dimension we're talking about here is digital literacy, but building in that inclusivity by default. So almost, you know, we don't get to a situation where someone can't use it because we've thought about them, you know, we've had a persona or whatever techniques that we're using. So would you say that's true, that actually what we ought to be doing is building this into the fabric of what we do as BAs so that we don't inadvertently exclude an entire section of society?
Yeah, I mean, normally economic sort of necessity is you can't deal with every single edge case. But really we should be looking at different ends of a spectrum. We shouldn't just target us. I mean, I've been through various sort of generations of IT change, and the word a few years ago was all about mobile first or omni-channel. An age group, and that may not be your grandparents, it may be your parents, maybe aren't that comfortable with a smart device or even a tablet. So the assumption that our target user community knows how to use those devices is maybe a false assumption. So yeah, I'm not saying that we need to dumb everything down so it's too simplistic, because we need to bring everybody up to a higher level. It's about training and awareness, as I said earlier. Definitely think about be empathetic with your users. Yeah,
that sort of user empathy. And again, I'm starting to sort of think that see a possible connection with customer experience and sort of diversity and inclusion. And I'm wondering, as we're speaking here, Tony, whether, because you mentioned language, and I must admit, I do find it very confusing sometimes when you're logging onto a website for an industry and the entire website's written in the industry language, and you have to remember, yes, this is a such and such website, so that word means something completely different to how anyone would ever actually use it in the real world unless you're in that industry. And what I'm wondering is, would you say is it a situation where actually if we make it better for folks who are less comfortable using tech, it actually becomes easier for everyone? Is there a sort of win, you know, we might be focusing on the 20%, but actually we make it easier for the 80% by doing that?
I think so. And there's something also slightly more subtle here. I think we work in an industry is constantly changing, and we're part of that drive for constant change and innovation. And the jargon comes with that. It's a very close cousin. And there's no reason to invent new terms and to obfuscate or to confuse our user. So yeah, if a basic term works, it's understandable, use that. As I say, omnichannel is one example where it doesn't mean anything to a user. They can either use a facility on their phone or their tablet or their laptop, or they can't. They don't really care about responsiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. And
this is internal domain knowledge and jargon that shouldn't leak out into the public.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, a slight tangent there, but I just as a customer, I found it very frustrating when you can sign up on one channel, but you have to shift channel to make another, to make an inquiry, and you sort of think, well, hang on a minute, you were happy to answer my call when I was a prospect. Why do I have to use live chat now? I'm a customer type of thing. So maybe there's something about consistency of channel as well. If someone's chosen a channel, ensuring that they can live their customer life cycle on that channel if they choose to.
Yeah, more choice is good. Simpler language. I mean, we know about UX. You have to give pathways to people. You have to allow systems to be intuitive. This is not new terms, but it lends itself to expect a certain level of digital literacy that maybe isn't there.
Yeah. So Tony, another topic that you've mentioned is lifelong learning, and I suppose digital literacy itself really underpins the importance of lifelong learning. I mean, if I just think about how technology's changed in my life, in your life, in all of our lives, we've seen several real I know it's a buzzword, but paradigm shifts. And I talk to people now about how the first job I had, inter-office memos went in the post, right? And that just seems archaic now. But I mean, what's lifelong learning about? What's your perspective on lifelong learning? How do we engage with it? How do we get the most out of it?
I mean, it's actually slightly scarier than you're pointing. I mean, we have a generation now in the UK of children who have gone through most of their life with a computing curriculum. Yeah. So the hope is that these shiny young adults moving into the workplace know enough to function, and they probably do. They're digital natives. But probably the day they leave, they need to start learning again. And they will potentially in their life, people will be working potentially 3 or 4 times longer than they've been in full-time education. And your career may fundamentally pivot or change a similar number of times or more. So where's the support for those learners who may not have a course or curriculum in mind, may not have the opportunity to study full-time, to upskill? Yep, lifelong learning and the tools that support that, I think, are fairly lacking.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually, because as you were speaking there, Tony, I was thinking about going way back, because I did, for my sins, I did computing at A-level, and we were taught stuff that was out of date then, but the principles were still quite relevant. So, I mean, I can remember being taught about Winchester discs, sequential tapes, and file handling, and actually the principles of it had a place. And gosh, I think there was even a 6-tape merge sort or something. I can't, but don't quote me on that. But I would hope that people leaving education now are having more up-to-date stuff. I suppose the question is, how can we, as say BAs, stay up to date with all of the technological and other changes that are happening? I mean, what would you suggest? How do we do that? How do we avoid that situation where you inadvertently get out of sync?
Well, I mean, with my life, it's quite difficult, and it involves conscious decision at every point to think about your professional development. Think about what you need to learn. Google, to some extent, holds us back, because the assumption is that Google cares about your CPD, but it doesn't. It provides a sorted list of content that doesn't necessarily relate to your learning needs. So I think the key message is to understand what you need to learn and to seek out the right sources of that information that you can trust.
Yeah.
And I mean, certification, obviously, as a professional, that's something, a route we can take. But I think a lot of the micro learning, a lot of the more sort of situational learning is probably a bit more subtle than that.
Yes, situational learning, so mentor-mentee type relationships, and I don't know. Sometimes I found, Tony, I don't, tell me if you've differed, but I found that sometimes just finding someone who's got experience, and like most people, if you send them a LinkedIn message or an email and say, look, I'm really struggling with X, could I just have 20 minutes of your time and you point me in the right direction? Most people will say yes. So, I mean, would you sort of advocate that as well, sort of networking and reaching out to people who have the knowledge to give you those signposts?
Well, I mean, people who have knowledge, in my experience, like to share it because it gives you a warm feeling. It's the giving is a much more, in terms of your brain chemistry, giving is better than receiving.
Yeah.
We know that intuitively.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I'm working on a project where I'm trying to instill that level of support on a portal. So if you haven't got that expert that you can call on, that you can get it as a proxy.
Fantastic.
But as I said earlier, I don't think that's available easily in the wider internet.
Fantastic. Well, Tony, we must wrap up there. Time is against us, as it always is, but really, really fascinating conversation. I'm absolutely certain, Tony, that people want to stay in touch. They'll want to follow you. They'll want to know more about what you do. How's the best way for people to reach out and follow you, Tony? I
imagine most people are following you via LinkedIn, so I have a profile there. I'm also working on, as I said, a new initiative called IT Elementary School, which is, as I say, a portal that I want to use to encourage digital literacy. So find me on there. I'm working on hashtags and some other social media messaging. So they should be coming out in the next days and weeks.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Tony, what we'll certainly do is we'll include a link to your LinkedIn profile in the wrap-up email that goes out after this as well to people who have registered. So, Tony, thank you so much for a really interesting conversation, and hope to speak again soon.
You're very welcome. Yes, thank you, Adrian.
Okay, cheers.
Bye then, bye-bye.
Fantastic. So I thought some really interesting tidbits there from Tony, and I don't know what your thoughts were, but I was starting to draw all sorts of connections between some of the things that perhaps Debbie was saying about, you know, having a service, but having to know our customer, and our customer or the user or whatever we want to call them may not have the level of digital literacy that you, I, or other people have. And that idea of lifelong learning, I mean, hey, I suppose we're all tuned in here. This is a sign that we are lifelong learners, and maybe we could, you know, spread our expertise out or help each other or build a community or whatever. So we have a few more shout outs. In fact, we have a lot of shout outs coming in now. We'll read those out in the next break. Your final chance to get a shout out, and if you would like to, of course, it is bafringe.live. That is bafringe.live if you would like a shout out read out live on air. It can be anything you like, you know, something you're taking away, something you're celebrating or whatever. But we must move on to our next segment. Have you ever wondered about mentoring or being a mentee? Fits quite nicely with what we've just been talking about with Tony. Well, I'm really pleased that Saffron House, Professional Development Director at IIBA UK, has agreed to give us a bit of an insight into how the matching process works at IIBA UK's mentoring scheme, and to tell us a little bit more about it. So, Saf, over to you.
Hi, I'm Saffron House. I'm the Professional Development Director for IIBA UK, and I'm going to talk to you today about mentoring. IIBA UK have been running a mentoring scheme for 5 years now, and it's been incredibly successful. If you are a BA at the beginning of your career, or if you're a BA who maybe has had a little bit of time off and done something different for a few years, or even if you have been a BA for several years and just feel like you could do with meeting someone from a different industry and perhaps getting a bit of support outside of your line management and a current organisation, then I would encourage you to think about applying for the scheme. It's a scheme that runs for 9 months. It opens in February, and it's all done remotely, and it's very easy to participate in the scheme. All you need to do is apply, and we will then do our best to match you. And once the scheme begins, you will get invited to a kick-off session run over Zoom, where myself, Liz, the director of IIBA UK, and our trusted advisor, Janice McNamara, will all be on the call to go through the process and to help you understand what the role of mentor and mentee entails. And if you've been a mentor before, you may well know, but we also have a specific way of considering the relationship that we'll talk through with you. And what's special about our scheme is that it's entirely based on the competencies within the BABOK. That's the IIBA's business analysis body of knowledge, the big orange book that some of you will know about. So it's not just a general mentoring scheme. It was created for us in collaboration with Janice and IIBA Global, but created for IIBA UK some years ago now. So it's well proven to be an effective framework to help you as a BA to develop yourself. If you are a mentee, then you'll probably be thinking, yeah, I can see what benefits I would get. I'd get someone to give me advice and to help me to achieve some specific objectives. And if you're maybe thinking about being a mentor, you might be thinking, well, why would I do that? Well, I was a mentor 4 years ago now, and I found it really valuable and really rewarding, and actually I learned a lot because the person that I was matched with was in a different industry. It really refreshed my thinking about how to be a BA. And I'd also become a team leader, and I was fairly new to being a team leader, so it helped me to exercise and grow my ability in coaching and supporting someone at the beginning of their career. So the scheme is really very, very valuable, whether you're a mentor or a mentee. And you may be interested in understanding how we match people. So when you apply, the matching is done by myself. All of the applications I will take a look at, and I will look at the information that you provided. And when you apply, you'll be asked to state what your objectives are. We'll need to know which industry you're in so that we can help to make sure that we create a bit of cross-fertilisation and put people who are perhaps in financial services together with a person who's in a completely different industry. That can be very insightful. We'll also, if you've said that you particularly want to achieve something, maybe understanding more about data analysis or understanding more about agile or cyber or something along those lines, we'll do our best to match you with a mentor who has some expertise in those skills. So we do match people intelligently, and we believe that we can create some very good and successful relationships. And the statistics show that. Well, last year, I think we had over 70 applications, and it was our biggest scheme so far. If you're thinking about being a mentor or mentee, you will need to be able to commit to the process, and you're going to need to put in 2-3 hours each month if you're a mentor, because you need to make yourself available for probably at least an hour to the mentee, and then do a bit of reading and commit yourself to really understanding what the mentee is trying to achieve. And if you're the mentee, then you'll need to put probably more than that in, because the relationship, it really you will only get out what you put in. And so not only do you need to be available to spend time with the mentor each month, but you also need to go off and do those things that maybe they suggest or that you agree between you are going to be beneficial to really make sure that you are moving forward. And the job is yours to actually develop yourself. The mentor can help, but really it's the mentee who needs to take grasp of the relationship and go from there. Well, I think I've ticked off all the things I wanted to say. Do please have a look at IIBAUK.org to see more information about the mentoring scheme, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Fantastic. So really, really interesting insight there from Saf. So thank you very much, Saf, for that insight. It's really interesting. I thought it was really cool how, you know, you can apply for this mentoring scheme, and Saf will try and sort of, I hesitate to use the word matchmake because that sounds like something from a different context, but, you know, get the right person with the right mentee, and also the fact that you could be at any stage in your career, and the you know, the ability to get some insight from someone outside of your organization is really, really valuable. So do, of course, go over to IIBAUK.org and check that out. I think someone had put that URL in the chat for you to go and have a look at. So just a few things to say before we close. We've got a few shout outs. There was a shout out that we noticed in the chat, actually, which was Brenda says, shout out to the Close Brothers crew. Easy for you to say. I'll do that again. Brenda says, a shout out to the Close Brothers crew. I almost got it right there. So anyway, massive shout out to the Close Brothers crew. We also have someone sent us in a picture. And we've very quickly got this onto the piece of equipment. So anyway, we'll see whether this next shout out works or not. So Ian says, congratulations on season 2, Adrian. Thank you very much, Ian. Tonight I have company for the show, CPIC. Ginny also thinks the prize is cool. Ah, fantastic. We've managed to get the picture up on the screen. Phew, fingers crossed. So thank you, Ian, and thank you, Ginny. Yeah, I think cats seem to like lockdown, don't they? They seem to be appearing on Zoom calls. And I think a good rule is if anyone's cat appears, they have to be introduced. Natalie says, shout out to the Cambridge UISBA team, a frickin' awesome bunch of people. That's Natalie's words, not mine. Keeping me sane through the lockdown. Well, either that or joining me in the madness. Well, I think we're all both in the lockdown and the madness, Natalie, but massive shout out there as well. So just finally, before we close, do remember, check out that competition for the top trumps at AssistKD /news. You won't want to miss out on that competition. Also, it's time now already to sign up for the next BA Fringe, because remember, they sell out. So if you're in the Zoom room, you'll know how cool it is to network with other people in the Zoom room. If you didn't get in this time, definitely register now. If you're in the Zoom room, we're about to put the sign up link for the next BA Fringe in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube recorded, there'll be a link in the description below that. It's the 17th of February. Now you can, some people have been asking, oh, but I don't know whether I can make it. Like, you can register and cancel later. And if you register and cancel, you'll still get a link through to the recording. So if you're not sure whether you can make it, just register now. You can always cancel later. There's a cancellation link and you still get access to the recording. So what is there not to like? Also, have a think about whether you would like to be on BA Fringe. It isn't as scary as it might seem. I absolutely promise you. And if you would, or even if you just got an idea that you'd like to run past us here, just drop us a line. The idea really is for this to continue to grow and be another platform for, you know, for all of us as practitioners to get a message out there, to have an opportunity to, you know, have our 5 minutes on the stage, so to speak. So if you'd like to, do get in touch. You can reply to any of the emails we send, any of the newsletters, and well, you know, I'll be in touch and we can have a discussion about it. Do continue tweeting and LinkedIning your biggest takeaways. Remember, the hashtag is BA Fringe. You can use that while the show's on. You can use it if you're watching the recording. You can use it whenever. As I say, I always really enjoy it after a show's aired, looking on social media, seeing what people are discussing, because obviously I don't get much of a chance to look in the chat whilst we're actually producing the show. More generally, do stay in touch. My social media details are on the screen now. Would love to hear from you. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, drop me an invite. If you just say you are watching BA Fringe, I'll definitely accept it and we can stay connected. So remember, 17th of February is the next BA Fringe. All that's left for me to do is say a massive thank you to our speakers, because of course the BA Fringe would be nothing without the fantastic speakers that give up their time to share insight with all of us. A massive thank you to our sponsors, AssistKD. This is one of those events that could not happen if it wasn't for the generosity of the sponsors. So a massive thank you to AssistKD for supporting this community event. A massive thank you, of course, to you for tuning in, and a massive thank you to everyone who's had a part in making this happen. BA Fringe is, I cannot tell you the amount of things that have to happen in the right order for this to actually go out and work. And as always, I would say a particular thank you to my long-suffering producer Matt, who puts up with me making last-minute changes, and even when we get a picture of a cat, he's able to make that come up on screen during the show, which is just awesome. So to everyone tuned in, massive thank you. Remember, 17th of February, stay safe and see you again soon.